Welcome to Heilman and Haver. We are excited to have a very special guest with us today. As some of you may know, in a couple of weeks, Hadestown, the Tony Award-winning musical, is going to come through Seattle for a fairly short run, but just in time for Halloween. Thanks to the Seattle Theater Group, STG, better known as, coming to the Paramount Theatre October 31st, Halloween Day through November 5th. And joining us today is an award-winning performer, choreographer, recording artist, instructor, and creative director, Ian Coulter-Buford. Ian was born in St. Louis, and he's based in New York City. He holds multiple roles in the Hadestown production as a swing, a fight captain, we're going to find out what that is later, and an understudy for the character Hermes, the messenger of the gods and the play's narrator. He came through Seattle with the company last year on tour, and he joins us today from Los Angeles. Ian, thanks so much for being with us.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. We're looking forward to the show. And for those of us who are new to Hadestown, this will be my first time seeing it, actually. Can you give us a little taste of the plot? No spoilers, but tell us what, a little bit about it, and then what first attracted you to the show, and then how you got involved.
Yeah, so Hadestown, the musical, it's 8-time Tony Award winning, Grammy Award winning Broadway musical. It's now touring, obviously. And so it's all through music. It's all sung through music. And it's a like jazz and folk fusion, the music. So it's very different from what you usually would hear from a Broadway musical. It's loosely based off the myths, the Greek myths of Persephone and Hades, and Eurydice and Orpheus, and it just shows their new love and old love and finding hope within yourself. I'll say that. I'll leave that there.
Well, Matt and I got into the acting game kind of late. We met acting a few years back, and then it's rolled into the podcast. But and I've never prepared for a show with more than one role, and I don't think, Matt, you've ever prepared for a show with more than one role. As a swing, you're
Yes.
preparing for multiple roles, and swings, especially through COVID and coming out of COVID, swings and understudies have gotten a lot more attention, which is good. Super important part of the show that was previously overlooked. But I'd like a description from you about your process in preparing for multiple roles as a swing or an understudy in a complex musical like Hadestown, and how you stay mentally and physically prepared for each of them, because you just don't know which one you're going to be called upon to take over.
Yes, correct. You're completely right, where it could be literally an hour away from the show, a day away. Like it literally depends. But yeah, so a swing is essentially like an understudy for the ensemble, covering multiple roles in the ensemble. In this case, I'm covering all of the workers. So that includes 5 ensemble members. And so everybody has their own technique of how to remember and or go about their process. But me, I learn one at a time. So I learn a role at a time, and then I have like little index cards, like note cards. And I'm a color coordinated person, so I assign a color to each track that I'm covering. I'll write down little notes. Things become, once you learn one, they become a little bit easier because they're virtually almost doing the same thing. It's just like, who am I touching? Who am I next to? Who am I lifting? Type of moments like that. But for the most part, I'm just kind of writing down, what number am I on? Where do I exit? Where am I coming on from? Little small tidbits like that. Basically the same thing you would do with one role, but multiple roles. And then I utilize note cards because they're easier to just like have on my person, on my being. If I need them, I'm like, okay, cool. Act 2. Okay, he goes here, he goes here, he goes here. And then for the most part, I've been on this tour for 1 year and 7 months now. So now it becomes like, okay, who am I? Great. What music am I singing? Okay, cool, go. And then also understudying Hermes as well. So that's about 6 tracks, and I've done up to 12 tracks at one point. So this is a little bit of a less of a feat.
What would be the more challenging part, especially if in a role that maybe has both speaking and singing and choreography, obviously, out of those components of a role when you're a swing, which is the most difficult to transition to when you're on?
That's a great question. I would definitely say, well, depending on who I am. If I'm just swinging on for the ensemble, we just pretty much sing a lot. There's not a lot of um, dialogue. So it's just mostly like, okay, I am worker three today, and worker three is usually like the tenor. It's okay. I have to warm up my voice for tenor, notes that day. Or if I'm worker five, I'm the bass. I can wake up and do that. That's pretty. That's pretty a little bit more easier for me. But for the most part, it just depends. If I'm Hermes, I have, if I know ahead of time in advance, I can go through the script just to make sure I know the words, because I'm literally, like you said before, Hermes is guiding the story. So the words are very important, especially the spoken word for him. But yeah, it's just knowing I have like little voice notes that I'm listening to for harmonies in between scenes where have a break. I'm like, okay, this is okay, great. So little tidbits like that, because sometimes you don't go on for like months at a time, and then you're like, okay, I'm on. Here we go. And I guess that also adrenaline helps as well to kind of keep you focused. So.
Well, this is a really timely interview. Just last night, I saw a preview of one of the local theaters do Baskerville, which is a farce on the original Arthur Conan Doyle story for
Mm-hmm.
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. It's a cast of four people, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got Watson and Holmes, and then you've got these other two that play, I don't know, dozens of different roles between the two of them. So it's pretty comedic, and a lot of the comedy just comes from kind of those quick changes. Some of them are
Switch
taking
off,
place
yeah.
on stage. I'm wondering if you must have a memorable experience or a story about a time when you had to go on at a moment's notice.
Yeah. Literally, I want to say like a month and a half ago, I was I was in the dressing room eating guacamole and chips, and I was just chilling. I'm like, oh, it's fine. We're almost. There's a certain time in which the swings are allowed to leave. Like, you're not needed anymore. You can go ahead and go. And I literally want to say maybe 10 minutes before I was able to leave, they were like, hey, Ian, this person's out. You got to go on. Like, he doesn't have a voice anymore. You have to go.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? I'm like mid bite.
Yeah.
Like, excuse me? I was about to get ready to leave. So they rush my costume to me. I get changed. I'm warming up a little bit, kind of just seeing where they are in the story. Okay, cool. Let me just kind of get my headspace together to finish this out. So we're able to. But yeah, it's been that's probably the quickest I've been. Probably like three-fourths in the story.
Wow.
Wow. On the understudy side,
Mm-hmm.
uh, or for this or any other time you've done this, is there? I know on Broadway there's usually a rotation, right? That understudies are scheduled to go on every so many shows or whichever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Does it work the same way in a touring production that
Um, for the most part, I virtually the same. If there is like vacations on the queue or personal days, we'll know in advance. And if not, then however long you'll know. Um, but yeah, for the most part, we do a little rotation. There's two understudies for each role, each principal role, and or sometimes three. But yeah, it's kind of like, okay, your turn, your turn, your turn type of situation. So it just depends on how the lineup lines up that day.
Do you have a favorite role that you like to perform among the characters that you cover? And if you do, what makes that special for you?
Um, I think I have. Okay, I'm gonna say three very short answers. I promise. Hermes, just because it's Hermes and it's everybody loves Hermes, and it's such a delight to kind of be the guider for the evening. I love Hermes. That's what attracted me to the show. I love Worker Five, who is the bass, because it's the easiest. I get to just wake up and just like, okay, we're good, great. And then Worker Two is one of the female identifying tracks. As a swing, we cover female identifying and male identifying tracks. And she has this solo during the dance break in one of the songs. It's called "Living It Up on Top," and it's like a party song. It's joyous, it's jovial, and you get to kind of like improv and do what you want to do for about like two 8 counts. And so I just love doing that. If I'm doing it, it's we